Good morning. There are some things which might become more precious if we learned to be less precious about them. This could be true of the Bible and the ways we do the Bible in our public worship. It could also be true of our reflections on worship overall. How have you seen the Bible being done in churches across the land? This book, originally Screeds of Scrolls, was not written for daily, solitary, quiet times. It was written as public truth, to be read aloud and debated. It was not written to be kept on the page, but to bring alive stories. Stories for us to get into, stories to get into us. So these writings deserve to be heard in ways that demonstrate they are worth listening to. They are likely to arouse our curiosity and our questions, maybe surprise us, or give insight, encouragement, challenge, or reassurance. They are meant to get inside us and make a difference to our outlook on the world. And so, take for example, the story recorded in John's Gospel where Jesus heals a man born blind, provoking strong reactions of astonishment, disbelief, accusation, and disapproval. A tale of intrigue that only really makes sense if you hear the entire 41 verses. Now, at least 10 characters feature and speak in this chapter. And the action moves among at least 3 different locations. So having a bunch of readers being these characters and seeing them move locations as the tale unfolds makes for a more engaging encounter with Scripture than a one voice at one lectern delivery. In another gospel, Mark, what might bring alive that story of Jesus noticing a poor widow give her last pennies to the temple treasury? I've seen this done by way of a contemporary dialogue as 2 gentlemanly bankers meet and begin comparing investments, savings, financial advisors, and deals, all the while oblivious to the slow approach of an old woman and the chink, chink of her small coins dropping into a plate beside them. Later in that worship, there was an invitation for any of us to bring a small coin to the plate as a symbol. A symbol maybe of associating ourselves with the widow and her generosity, or of committing ourselves to a faithful attitude towards our wealth, or recognizing the good that money can do, but an action that got us up and moving in response to the word. So just 2 examples from the Old Testament, again, beginning with that question, what would bring alive this text, this passage? Raisins, apples, pomegranates, myrrh, a bed covered with red satin, the Song of Songs, celebrated with real fruit to eat and incense to smell and beautiful bedclothes to touch or even lie on, and an invitation to light a candle in thanksgiving for the gift of intimacy in all its forms. And in the middle of that liturgy, 20 minutes of biblical poetry, the full book, read aloud with feeling by a man and a woman and others being their friends. This is the word of God. Sometimes we best do it justice by letting it speak for itself. Further back in the Bible's history, in Joshua, chapters 3 and 4, there is recorded the less known legend of God holding back the waters, not of the Red Sea, but of the river Jordan, to provide a safe crossing for his people. How to bring this tale alive? I can tell you, it is quite an experience to take it right out of church and to walk it and talk it alongside and over a real river. This one incident is told over 2 chapters. So on the walk, it was split into 6 short installments, with one discussion question suggested for each segment. And then on a 1-hour route with set stopping places to hear the next part of the story, to swap conversation partners, and then walk on and share thoughts. There you have it. Biblical blethers on the hoof. How will we do the Bible as we worship together? What does this text need in order to breathe? Our best responses will be both imaginative and practical. Imagination to come up with a sense of what this text needs to come alive. And practically, it requires time and rehearsal. Yes, rehearsal. Well worth it if we are going to get into this story and let it get into us. How might it be true of our communal worship in itself that being less precious about it might enable it to become more precious? I mentioned those 4 particular scripture stories because on each occasion when I've seen them presented in these creative, participative ways, I've also been involved in a structured reflection process of the worship services in which they were a part. Debriefing liturgy. Every once in a while, inviting worshippers to feed back and reflect on a specific occasion of our public worship. That is a very valuable experience, and it's a conversation we rarely have. It's not giving a crit on the minister or musician or any others who led the worship on that occasion. And it's not just turning up and saying what I liked or what I didn't like. The one golden rule is never do it straight after worship, but between one day and 1 week after is the best time frame. And this debriefing process is an opportunity to learn more about our different understandings of what worship is and what effect it has on us. It lets us hear from others about how they responded to the same songs, prayers, readings that we heard, but how they responded almost certainly not in the way we did. It lets us discover the strengths and weaknesses of our buildings, our sound system, our sight lines, our seating. It opens up possibilities of more collaboration in shaping worship that works, that draws us in, that allows us to encounter God and be changed. It begins with the question, what worked for you in this time of worship and why? What was important for you? What touched you? What was good? When all that people want to say on this has been said and teased out, the second question is, what didn't work for you and why? In a reflection session on the widow's mite, someone spoke of the moment the old woman's coins landed in the plate. And they said, the sound of them hurt. But they meant that was a good moment. Another person said, As I walked forward with my 1 pence piece in my hand, it became bigger and bigger. I saw more and more possibilities of what a little can do, how far this could go. Someone else said, I reacted defensively at first and just retreated into my head, but then began to think, well, what small changes can I make? And another comment was, the banker's chat was funny and embarrassing too. It connects with our taboos. I thought it belonged in a panto, not in worship, but it worked too, precisely because it was out of place. The Song of Songs reflection session evoked comments like this. The first thing was the smell, then so much sensory stuff. And I just thought, desire is all right. I was shocked by the bed, but then I loved the way it was showing that the delights of the home are holy. My bed is where my children crawl in for a cuddle. To see that in a place of worship was like God honouring me as a mum. I've never felt that before. I found it a bit chaotic. It was a struggle to make a spiritual connection. All of this is good to hear. Following up the riverside walking and talking about Joshua and the Israelites, many of the group mentioned how much easier it was to get into conversation about the scripture story because we were on the move. And because each discussion was time limited. And because there was a change of talking partner every 5 or 10 minutes. But most of all, to explore that strange and miraculous story about a river crossing when you are confronted by a wide, deep, and very real river proved more powerful than sitting indoors talking about it. The Bible, let it breathe. Our worship, invite some occasional reflection and feedback. There are some things which, if we learn to be less precious about them, might become more precious to us. Thank you.